Well, hello. Back at here to talk about disagreement, conflict, disturbances of the destruction and repair, no? Because that's kind of like what we're talking here. Then these are the subjects of today.
That's right. And I feel like if I think about not just the main topic of today, but the repair rupture that you also touched on last week and a few times, I think this is really what brought us here together is repair and rupture and repair, because rupture hopefully happens first and then repair, not after. And even if it happens again and again, I think it's really this learning curve of what is causing the rupture, because it's always an evolution of the previous one. Let's say if it's in a relationship of two people in a long term, when there was a rupture at first, you repaired it, rupture, repair, rupture, repair, rupture, repair. Every rupture might be the same cause, but it's a different you, a different me, right? So it always will evolve. And before we even get to how to, meet one another again in those spaces, I really want to begin to touch on the difference of how people even respond to a rupture. Rupture being a disagreement, a conflict, misalignment, something that doesn't feel right, something that maybe someone said or did, or something you saw that you disagreed on, what that emotion and feeling makes you feel on the inside, and how you deal and cope with that, what's coming up. I think that's the initial thing to really begin the conversation, because I find it interesting that, at least for me, and you might be able to confirm this for yourself, me being in this work of mindfulness, in the space of awareness, in the space of presence, that I always want to address what is happening in me. And I'm noticing when I'm looking into the fields of anyone else that is not in the space, they're having a really hard time to do that, because one of the reasons I just received from this one I talked about a little bit last week was not knowing what to say, not having words to describe how we're feeling. And I think that's really where it begins, is that we are in society, we're only going to address something once we know the solution, once we know how we're going to address it, once we know the right words. And everything before then, oh, we're not going to talk about this now. No, we're not going to touch on this now. But my thing is, like, if I don't talk about it in the process of figuring out what the right words are by sharing the so considered wrong words, or the words to, like, where I'm still figuring myself out, if I don't share those words, how on earth will I know what the right words are? And so this is where I was a little bit in a thing myself. It's like, okay, how can I get people to be comfortable sharing thoughts and emotions about something that ruffled their feathers, rocked their boats, to be comfortable sharing them, even if it might not be the right analysis at that moment?
I'm taking that's a question.
That is a question for you. I mean, it's also, there are two things, right? The first thing
for everyone, because I think like the reality is, you touch in the first one, is like, okay, like, first, can I separate myself from the mass of things that happen? Can I separate myself? Can I separate and connect with my body? First reaction, we feel something in the body, with the rhetoric that is coming into the rescue of that feeling. It's like, because sometimes that's what is happening. It's like, we have pain, and then there's a pain that's emotional pain, and like, they're associated, because also, let's look at the other polarity. There's people that are drawn to this constant being in rupture, and they need it for survival. They need, they need to be in situations where they're never safe, where the whole rhetoric is repeating, is confirming that the wall is not safe, that people cannot be trusted, and that we are left to the kindness of the wall or the unkindness of it, and that's the autopilot, isn't it? Because that's really easy to do it. So first is like, what's mindfulness, as far as I understand, is like, okay, body, mind, experience have to have a tiny dialogue among them three, and they have to regulate into just the experience of what it is. We don't have to, and then that's kind of like with the rapture. Like, I like with the way that you say, yeah, relationships are made of contact raptors, but for example, sometimes we are in relationship where the first raptor, we know that is crossing our boundaries. For example, what it could be like, someone who we already, and I'm going to put this example of someone who may, come with you and into a holiday or something, and you assume that this person is solvent and that you both on holiday, and then when you go there, he doesn't have money. And you are in a foreign country, and then you have to just be with this person, and then you had to pay, that's a bit of a red flag. And then, and it's crossing your boundaries because it's putting you in a position of discomfort. And so there's a rupture there, but actually we repair it by dismissing ourselves. So then, with the self repair, but then the rupture happens. So the more that we dismissal of like the boundaries and the feelings that we have and the attention we had to pay to understand what is happening and figuring out, as you say, finding those words, the more this rupture is going to be faster and faster occurring, because we have undwelled things. We don't really know. It's like to me, it's like the more that we support spaces of rupture, and the fast, and we don't, the more that we lose control. And the important is just to maybe give a bit of a space of that, and sometimes, it may take you a little time to figure things out, and sometimes it take you a long time to figure things out, but that's kind of like in the finding, and in answer to, can you find out with the person? Ideally, but sometimes it's not possible. And sometimes the conversation to have is the conversation of conflict, and then basically it's an argument, and we don't have to just like we have to accept that the other person is exposing something, and they may be angry, and that's not the time we're gonna like being told that they're sorry. Maybe if we leave a bit of time later, then we progress. But like, I think, to me, and the work that I'm doing is like, I many times have allowed rupture to happen, and I haven't really been showing up for my own repair of that rupture, on my own body, on my own, like, we are not responsible for other people, or reading the mind of other people, or not knowing what happened, or like, even like if we've done something, unless it's been intentional or whatever, even if it's been something that happened between us that may have caused, we're responsible to hold the space and to say, I'm here and I'm just seeing, but we're not responsible for everything else, I think, up to a certain level, of course.
Yeah, what's interesting, you mentioning space, and I think that's exactly the problem. Because space means patience, it means a prolonging of discomfort, it means distance, it means some other things. But from these things that I just mentioned, from distance, discomfort, patience, these are things that we as humans, no matter what we talk about conflict, disagreements, or anything in life, it is super difficult. If we're hungry, we don't really like to wait around and have that discomfort in our bellies and prolong that distance to food, for example.
I don't think so. I think people work with a lot of discomfort, and I'm gonna like use like, because I think it's important to turn this kind of like distance could be retrieving. We can see.
No, I
like,
know, but that's easy for us. But I'm saying for some people, the retrieving part can feel one, like you don't know what to do with what you're feeling, so you're distracting yourself.
Yeah,
And
we're
so I
talking
think
about anxiety. We're talking about the anxiety of not being able to see it and
exactly.
do the discovery, which is like not being able to see it and just feel, where this is what I mean. I'm hungry, I need to have it now. But like this is probably possible in the last 30 years of our life. In the past, there weren't even that many takeaway, that many supermarket, that many ready-made food, and people they have to operate differently. And we are
Of course,
short
I mean,
we're
we
short.
kind of, yeah, we ended last time. I just want to throw this in here because last time we ended the conversation with this term that I was discovering when it comes to the body, we're more likely to be able to be in discomfort in prolonged time than when we are in emotional. So this is pretty much what you're stating, while at the same time, and I'm thinking about children right now, like if they're hungry, they want to eat now, and it's for us as a parent, for example, to tell them, no, we got to wait, and they'll be fine. Yes, we can definitely deal with discomfort. And I just used the term of body in a way that if we could, we would, right? But we always find other things external from us to be more important than what's happening in our bodies. So that just to justify what you were saying as well, because yes, I agree with you. That's what's happening. At the
And
same
what I'm
time, I
talking,
think there's another thing
yes,
to
what
that.
I'm talking is about the power of the word and the charge that we give them. Because the way when we present it, we are distancing, we are, sitting in discomfort. All these things already, like, it's giving us an information that is not pleasurable. But it's like saying all the time, "It's so cold. It's so cold." Well, you're getting yourself into a state or being in a concert. So it was a long queue to leave the things. Oh, we'll have to like run and leave early at the concert to get that first. Is this sort of like, reactive? Well, it's like, well, actually, because it's going to take a long time, let's have more space to enjoy and do nothing, and we just have come to do that. Why do we have to rush? Why do we, which is the allowing a thing, but people are constantly working with discomfort. Their thoughts are discomforting because they are thinking about like, oh, it's cold or whatever. Their clothes is discomforting because they're more willing to wear like two things that are tighter than not, because that's what it is. Shoes can be discomfortable, works can be these uniforms, like you name it. Like there's a level of, I think we need to just start, instead of like picking certain things at discomfort, like, wow, we live in discomfort. The economy is a discomfort. Like going in and paying like so much for something that you need and you may have, like, that's discomforting. Like, and so we live in discomfort, period. Can we?
I don't know if people are actually aware of that. I think
Well,
that's
that's
more
what
of
we're
what it
talking.
is.
This is the
No,
point.
exactly. But I'm saying, like, you pointing it out, I don't think we are aware of how uncomfortable we already are. So I don't know what the hesitancy is by getting uncomfortable with one another. Like, the moment I am discomforting by myself, no problem. I'll deal with it, right? But the moment there is a discomfort happening between two people, why is that so much more difficult? And I want to distract, ignore, resist, whatever it takes to not be in that discomfort. What is it?
Your need for connection, you need to secure, that's
Right.
is an innate, nature. Like, like you can just put it like that, being socially excluded, not having that bond. Like you feel like basically the core feeling of that is that I'm unsafe because I'm missing the connection with this person. But then the reality is that there's like 3 million of people. So there's two options of that. You lose connection with one person, but then you're going to retreat to your home, not meeting anyone else and just having a really bad time. It's scenario one. It's scenario two, you're going to go out and maybe you speak to a stranger and you meet another friend and they are able to give you a more positive version of what is happening or help you dwell with it or have a completely separate experience from what is disturbing you. Which of the two scenarios is taking the person farther? So in a way, what I'm discovering is like, I'm going to sit in my circumstances for as long as I want to not make any movement out of them. You know, because that's kind of what it is, you know, like I think like, especially if anyone here listening to us have experienced a deep depression, physical depression, when you're like really, you know, it's just like this feeling of like being blown like a lead. And I think this is also very much like something we can live in a not depressive state, as a state of being as humans, that no direction. Life is going over. Like I'm having to do this with my kids. I'm having to go to work. I'm having to do things. I have no time. I have, you know, I want to find time to do something and I don't get it. I'm tired. So in a way, it's like when you are in those spaces and you are like losing yourself, you get to a point that you're thinking, it's only me who can act out. It's the same if, you know, someone who's been taking drugs for a long time. They are only the only people who can start taking drugs. You know, so again, how much discomfort are you willing to take? But are we going to assess the discomfort with the disconnection or with the possibility that you can connect with something else? And that's the choice that you can bring yourself to awareness to take. It's like, these are the two optional choices. The moment
Yeah,
that
and at the same time, I think it's way more complex than just picking one over the other.
no, I just say that we want you change the conversation in between the two people probably remain there, and that conversation may have. I'm not, you know, I'm not resolving the problem. What I'm resolving is the scenario from where you can analyze and confront it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know? So the problem will remain there, because then is we as I say, life is a process of ruptures and repair. Like, you know, our body breaks and it heals itself. You know, nature get the spring and the thing, and then it killed them all. So there's that process, and I think this is kind of like, I think it's I don't know what's the, I don't want to say the actual name of the practice, but the Japanese create this golden pottery feeling where the cracks are, because this is part of the way of showing people how, you know, through cracks you can also embed it and make them beautiful. Like, it's a way, is a physical way to tell a story, which is okay to be broken, as long as the break is repaired with something that hold it together. So
That's why they use gold.
yeah, that's what I mean. It's a golden infused resin, but this is what I mean. Is gold because it's also shiny. But I think like as a practice, it's really like it just embedded a whole philosophy, and this is what maybe as a visual is good for people to work in it. You know, like it's when they say, "Oh, my heart is broken." Yeah, your heart is a muscle, so it can't really break. But yeah, I have felt that feeling of having like a heart broken, and it's actually most likely, in a cardiology term, is the mouth of your ventricles closed and your hair enlarged, and it's a physical state. So again, you know, these things are happening. They're happening in your body. You're feeling the disconnection. You are feeling something very human, which is like, I value this person. I value this relationship. Okay. The question is, what is it that you value? What is it that, you know, what is it that is supporting you? There's a dissociation with a person, but there's 20 more in your life, and there could be another 300. We're going to focus in that. If we're going to focus in that, let's do it with the curiosity. What is it that this person triggers on me? What is it that, what are, you know, as you say, what are the facts of the rupture? You know?
I mean, yes, they do say that, there's, I think it's like 5 things that really make some positive impacts into our lives, which is obviously connections. There's creativity as well. There's a few other ones, and belonging obviously is the biggest one, right? And I think at the end of the day, we sometimes just have to get over that hurdle of discomfort with the knowing that no matter how uncomfortable it will be, and no matter not knowing where this relationship, for instance, will end up, that it will still be for the better than staying in silence and not voice it.
Yeah, and also like again, like we are trying to go for a world that respect everyone. is a topic, which I think is the right direction. But let's realize that it's a topic, you know. So there's agree to that, there's to the rupture and constant repair, there's going to be the discomfort we had to see with like accepting things we don't like about others and ourselves too, you know.
Exactly. That's what I was just thinking too, because I think if we just accept, and I mean, we talk about unconditional love so often, right? And unconditional love for me always starts with me, because if I can't unconditionally love myself, if I can't accept all the things that might not be so great about me, that maybe is a reason why someone doesn't want to be friends with me, right? If I'm okay with that, then it doesn't matter. Then that friend was good for a period of time, and I have to accept for that, for it, not because of the other person. It's actually more for me, because if I accept that friendship to come to an end, or taking a pause, or whatever you want to, whatever state that your rupture is in, it's only here to gain more information, more insight, more knowledge about yourself. The only trouble I have, and this is to what you started off saying, right, is like when there is, oh yeah, people didn't know about this conversation, but it was a prior conversation around conflict. It's like, if I don't get anything in return, if I don't know why someone is upset with me, then I cannot change anything. So I can't be, then I don't see it and there's anything wrong with me, right? Because I can't be in the thinking of like, oh, what's wrong, or what is it gone, and I be holding myself back unless they are actually telling me that's what's going on. So that's the difficulty with silence.
This dig a little bit there. You are feeling that something is going wrong because there's a lacking or telling you what actually is. So actually it become bigger because you know, like if I say to you, well, I was upset because of that, then at least you know it, and that's fine. But if I don't tell you anything, then you can create different scenarios, and that's what the mind goes and does and wonder, and then you associate it with other things, so your mind can be reasoning for it, you know, because it's
Or I mean, in my personal situation, I would just leave it alone, because unless I know for a fact, I am not going to waste my energy in trying to figure out something I don't know anything about. And that's not my job. If someone has a problem with me and they don't want to share it with me, guess what? Nothing will change. I will remain exactly the same. I will not do anything. And my thoughts are done with this topic. I'm not going to waste another second in any of this. But
take a
that's
long,
me.
but that
Yes.
that take you are you know, my foot teacher, and
No,
then
I mean, but that's what I'm saying. And I
what,
agree with you. I
yeah,
could be going in circles and I could drive myself crazy, but the only thing that will do for me is, one, I go crazy. Two, I will have animosity against that person because they haven't told me anything. Even though I say like, oh, whatever, I am still upset that they haven't told me what it is. And so in this particular situation, the only thing that I could keep saying is, my door is open whenever you are willing to make mistakes. I didn't say mistakes, but once you are willing to say the wrong words instead of being silenced, my door is open for you to come back and talk with me about it.
when you
But
say
that's
them,
not to repair the friendship. It might just be to get clarity, but the clarity is not even important at this point, you know.
that's what you are saying in terms of the wrong words. What I think I want to clarify by that is like, it's not about the agreement or disagreement, it's about the talking. So maybe the process of rupture and repair, it goes always through the communication and the willingness to pass page, because, you know, like I think sometimes it's easy to learn this of like moving on. It's important also to have the ability to say, you know, this among us is worthy, and we just, you know, we have this conversation, okay, so we move on. Sometimes the repair doesn't, I mean, for example, in this case I was sharing with you prior to us starting, it's like you say something like, oh, you know, I'm apologizing to you and I'm doing this and that, and what else you want? Do you want me to go into the floor and do that? hold on, if you're apologizing, then you don't really need to make me feel like I'm just basically not only not accepting your apology, but that I'm asking you to beg and not recognize you and injuring you. So this type of things are like something we really had to watch, because these are part of parameters of how society has worked. Victim, victimizer, perpetrator. You know, it goes always in that triangle, and triangles are hard to function. There's more to me like a circle thing, where like we all take this role, and there's another role that in among of them, which is of the reflector, which is of the third perspective, or the fourth perspective in this case, which is like looking at where we are. But telling people, oh, you're a victim. So for example, that's another thing. Like, but let's put an example on this. I have a problem with you, and you're willing to accept that I have a problem with, or let's say that you are not, when you know that you feel offended because actually the act of you offending me, you know, you're not happy with that as a person, you know, because you didn't want to offend me, and I'm offended, and this is giving you some sensation, and you're like, this is not right. If the other person is actually speaking for themselves and telling you whatever, it's not right to tell them, oh, you're a victim. Because this is also like, you know, like being done constantly. So someone is showing to say what it happened to them, and then when we do that, then we're turning into victims. And we do that a lot more on women than we'll do it to a man. And we probably would do more to men being perpetrators and, you know, on all these things than we'll do it to a woman, which we victimize, you know. So I think these are the things that we'll have when this type of conversations happen. It's like, all right, it's just acknowledging, like, I don't have to, the repair may not happen. The repair is happening by us acknowledging each other. And then it depends on the capacity that we have to move in to another stage without carrying that load, or using the load that we're carrying forward to address it when that rupture start happening, and say, hey, is it the same thing? Because
And also, I mean, at the same time, you know, if I say something to you, doesn't necessarily mean this is who you are. Just because I am saying this, right? So it's more of a question of how do I receive this? If I am being said, if someone tells me I'm the victim in this scenario, or I make myself the victim in the scenario, I'll be like, okay, if that's your opinion about how I'm being portraying myself, then that's great. I don't see myself as the victim. And so here we are trying to figure out the right term for what you think this is. To me, what I just did is whatever. I have no idea, right? But what I really find interesting is just that, and I was doing a post about this just yesterday, about this. You know, when I was growing up, I didn't know the language, how to have these conflicts with my parents, with friends, with whatever not, right? And if I look back now, I realize that I always wanted the exact same thing I want today, which is a resolution. Oh, and even if it's a disagreement of resolution, like we're not agreeing on it and we're fine, let's move on together, leave this topic here on the side, and we're never going to talk about this again, because apparently, just like politics and in religion and all these beautiful topics where we have very strong beliefs in, they sometimes can really hurt relationships. And I personally don't know if they're really necessary for relationships, so they can be put on the side. I can be friends with many people, but if your beliefs are so strong that you cannot be in the space with me about these certain topics, and you cannot put it on a shelf on the side and we can continue our friendship in a different direction, that is a sign of we cannot move on together, because we're not seeing eye to eye which topics can be put to the side. And if that's the case, we know the answer. This relationship is over and we will not talk again, because it just doesn't
over.
make sense.
That's the other thing. Like, it doesn't have to be over. I think like,
no, but if one person is not willing, I'm saying, like, if I'm willing, it's one thing. If you're
about
willing,
fanaticism.
yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think like that's, I mean, let's say, for example, with terrorism, say that like you have like something like what we have observed in the world right now. That's a big group of people doing something horrible to another big group of people. But so are armies. Because
Yeah.
armies are not there.
Government, put
like
government right in there. Same thing.
so at the end of the day, it's like, all right, so who is perpetrating here to who? And then it's about like how we reintegrate. Do we kill them all the people that bad? Can we actually like point it out and put it into a thing? I always think that we need to live with the reality that what we want with these individuals is to reabsorb, be a reabsorbing society in a way that they are more capable of sharing. So I think that's to sharing the space, to not be a danger to other people, basically, you know, to not having to like avoid and cut that. And I think like it's a good practice sometimes to you know, like just instead of closing that, like I'm never gonna talk to you again, it's like, all right, well, you know, I'm not gonna give energy to these, as you say, instead of like completely close it, because
No, so what the thing here is the thing, and I'm glad you brought up terrorism. I add government, you know, religion, whatever we want to add to this, right? Why I said what I said wasn't because I personally wouldn't be willing to have a continuing conversation. I just know that if the opposite person is not willing to put something to the side, because one thing that's really, really important in why these extreme conflicts cannot be resolved as easily is because both sides only see that their side is right and that there is nothing on earth that they will do to make sure that they will agree even a smudge on the other side. That is the number one problem. And this is why when we can't put something major to the side to actually start talking about the things we do agree on, there is no hope in the first place. Because unless one each on the side is willing to put something to the side, and in this particular case we're talking about that's happening in the world right now, is weapons. If you're not willing to stand tall on your own 2 feet in your own body without any weapons, and that be physical weapons or voice, like word weapon,
or silence, or
verbal,
silence, or
yes,
silence,
or
or
silence, non-communication, exactly. If you can just be there and listen to what the other person is saying, feeling what you're feeling, rage, anger, sorrow, whatever, suffering, like whatever suffering is coming up, and you can just stand there and feel it, and then let this person finish, and then you are able to share, I am so angry right now hearing the things that you just said, and have the other person just stand there and listen to why they're hurt. I could guarantee, and I know for a fact that people have done this in the past with people of extreme and radical groups, where they had conversations, where they used nonviolent communication, where they have helped people to figure this out. But what it takes is, again, what you touched on at the beginning, is space, it needs patience, and it needs distance, and it needs a whole lot of willingness to actually resolve the issue. And I don't think that many people on this planet want to.
there are more things that can be done, and there are things that are done, like for example, like in theater, which is
Yeah.
like using theater like to make people aware of all aspects of the situation. And there was this project of I think there's a lot of wildfires in, I don't know what part of it was, Brazil or not, where the indigenous people were there, and then there were people that obviously were coming to those lands that had been burned in order to work. So there was conflict within the communities, because so the work that they went there and did was work of Rupture and Repair, which is actually, they were both cohabiting in the project, because everyone will get together and everyone will give very different roles to the roles that they were experimenting. So they could just actually behave like, and then they could observe what it is, you know, aspect, like, you know, harming or protecting, or, you know, and doing it as a group, where actually, like, will fires start happening? No. Will people, but will everyone actually have a more awareness of the impact they're causing to one another? Is that a better space to move on? Or, for example, again, like, terrorism doesn't happen without reason. So are we willing to, you know, look into that? And another example of repair is like what happened with the Colombian guerrillas, you know, and how actually they had to say, well, we're going to be in conflict forever, we're going to be losing so many people, and actually we need to reabsorb these people. We need to actually somehow get to an agreement of disagreement and try to move on, but really not victimizing or diminishing the perspective of any of the other, and not with the winning and losing, you know, which is the hardest space. Because what we are asking people is, again, to be capable of living with the amount of discomfort that we are actually living without knowing, but that we kept being very offended when something really touches, and we are, you know, this is really important, you know, like, well, how important is it? Like, really, like, in the perspective, how many, this is what I was saying with, like, how many other rhetorics can be, how many, you know, is it the same if I sit here today, or if I'm in the sun, or if I'm going to a museum, or if I'm going to work? My life could be very different. Is it the same if you marry your husband or if you marry someone else? Your life could be very different. So
Well,
we
in the,
are
I
like,
wonder, I just was wondering the two examples that you made, right? With the theater example and then with the guerras in, was it Venezuela? No, Brazil?
yeah, but I mean, also the
Oh,
America,
South
really.
America. And they at least have the same foundation. At least. I mean, I don't know. Are they, right? Do they live on the same continent and they have the same language? They have the same beliefs. They have a lot of sames, right? There is just on the sprinkling top, there are some differences, right? So those obviously, that's like us having an argument. It's like, it's on the surface. It's not really that deep. But if we're talking about what's going on in the Middle East, those roots are deep. Those issues are deep. There is not just the sprinkling, it's like the existence of who they are, right? So that's what makes it even harder, right? Like, yes, I agree with you, where art, music, all these other tools, I call them languages, can be helpful. But the thing is, for many people, they can't make the connection between an artistic or like I was just doing some workshops in museums, and it was actually interesting what I discovered. But yeah, you want to say?
I think I think like what we need to look at is politics is a methodology for theater. And I think like we need to just recognize that, because it's shown on TV, it's shown in people signing, and it's really show how the whole of the nations went in and actually all sign a paper and all agree with the pain that the Israel people were having, which for sure they're having it, and there's been far too many days of wars and far too many deaths, and it's being of the most medieval and horrible. And the problem is that Hamas is going through this way of doing it. They were decapitating people in cameras, and the media is creating this. They're strengthening, because actually, like, you know, like the media was showing all these things, the media was terrorizing everyone. So that's theater. That's also because you can have a way of, like, I think in the past, like, this type of things weren't being shown, where you could just, you know, and it's the same when, you know, we see them in films and things where, you know, like, sometimes I don't like those kind of films, but some people really love it. You're like on the edge all the time, and someone is get the eye like perforated, and so there's a level of violence, and maybe we need to tolerate a level of violence because there's a level of violence in order to live, in terms of, like, we destroy natural, you know, to get our houses and to get our pipes and to get everything, and so, you know, so we are violent with that. We kill animals to do that, and we are capable to get into work with other people if we're missing resources. So the only thing that will separate us from acting that way is having a better structure of using all the methodologies to present something that is more equalizing. Because how can you know, if I was a terrorist and then everyone in the world just say, yeah, well, we don't care. Or if I wasn't a terrorist, I live in Gaza and I just have my family killed, and we weren't participating in a terror attack, but this has just happened to me, and I'm like 14 and I'm angry. And then on top of that, like, I have no one that I can talk with, and the whole world is telling me, well, I mean, this is something that has been very much described by, like, imagine an interview between a person who is gonna be a suicide bomber, and then actually, like, this is a fact. This was in the newspaper. A suicide bomber just telling about the reasons why they were so hopeless that they just thought that the life will only amount it for them to commit suicide. That was the only purpose that life could have. There's the level of desperation. And then the other interview was of a doctor who was operating on the people that actually suffer that kind of assault. Because what it happened is that the bones of the very physical structure of the person who's suicide goes into the bodies of the people that are impacted. So actually, you're not impacted with just a metal thing or a bullet. You're impacted with the very person that's killing herself, and that's a doctor perspective. So again, we need to just navigate more on those conversations, because otherwise we'll never. But like, it's just not everything that we do is ritualistic. Everything that we do is sending messages. Everything that we do is going to the deep roots, because we keep negating just for things to be on a surface level, and to just simply just say, yeah, it's not going to be perfect for a very long time, but what is it that we can do to at least make it aware, conscious, and we start navigating with that, and we are all responsible. I think the worst thing of being betrayed by someone or being harmed by someone is the amount of people around that stay silent, because they become, to me, they become we all become collaborators,
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer to any of these, conflicts that are bigger than that. I think it begins in the individual states on how we cope with conflict and disagreements, and bringing it all the way back to the beginning is like, if we can't have conflict resolutions within individuals, talking about it, making mistakes, maybe saying the wrong words, maybe communicating something that was misunderstood, and maybe it's the wrong term, like, say, like the victim thing, right? Like, maybe that's, if we're not able to get into these conversations, if we're not able to face them and get uncomfortable with one another and trust each other that it's for the greater good, these bigger conflicts will not be resolved. We as an individual have to be able to see the importance of one-on-one conflict resolutions. We have to be willing to not just distract ourselves and just look away and just hope for the better. Because to me, in the end, life has all these stresses in place for us to be better people in the first place. So by thinking that conflicts are hurting us is anything far away from the truth. In my book, I think we need to have these conflicts, we need to have this conversation, we need to see the pain of people so that we know, hey, we're all hurting here. Now, how can we repair this together? That's the only way. And the only way to repair it is not by putting the fingers on other people, how they hurt us, but to actually acknowledge, like, hey, I'm hurt too. Your part of this has hurt me, and I have to acknowledge that the things that I have done have hurt you. so that we're all can agree, like, we all do things to hurt each other. And why is that? It's because all what we want is love, and we have not learned how to love without hurting each other. And one thing I want to say, when you were talking about these movies and theater, and so it's like, that's the sad part. The sad part is, the more violence we see, the more okay it is for us to actually act on it with violence. And the moment that we start addressing and sharing different kinds of ways to resolve conflict without violence, that is when we have reached the goal of actually having a planet where we have disagreements, where we have conflicts, where we disagree on many things in life. Countries, people, world, like climate, whatever, nature disagrees on each other many times. I mean, squirrels fight over nuts. I saw the other day a bird was putting a nut in the ground, and there was a chipmunk hiding, waiting for the bird to go, and he took that nut out. That bird is gonna come back. He's like, where's my nut? You know, I mean, come on, this is just human nature. And this is what I'm saying, is like, but we have a brain, we can actually communicate, and we can talk with each other. It's like, hey, this is my nut, give it back to me. It's like, how about we share it?
Because you left it in a common ground, so I'll go with the squirrel.
Okay,
like,
okay. But how about we share it? This is what we can do. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
well,
you know
that
what?
was
Here's a
that
piece
we
for you.
we can do that at a human level. I don't think they can do, but I don't think they're resenting one another. I don't really know how everybody, but I think, like, to all the gracefully explain things that you share, I would just say, just start realizing we live with a lot of discomfort. So the tiny of discomfort that trigger us is just not actually like the end of the day. That's just basically something that trigger us, and we are in discomfort the whole time. It's a discomfort. You sometimes I see people walking on the street, and when they're like kind of like that, and I'm just thinking, oh my god, I feel now, and this may be a perspective with my growth, but I feel like it feels like it's so, I don't know, and I probably did that through my whole life myself too, and but it's a insecurity. Like, there's just like so many things that you think, like, is this hole in the whatever, like, you just like, and I'm thinking, wow, like, yeah, like, so basically it's like you are like worry about holding this identity for yourself and how you are perceived, and this is only on the way we walk, and I'm talking about, this is London, fashionable people happens here, so I'm just saying that they're not really like, and they know that they're good looking, and they know that but is this sort of like pose of like, I don't give a shit, but I actually very conscious about every movement I do and how I wear myself, and how, like, wow, that actually feels to me uncomfortable just to watch it now, like, and I think that's what we want people to just be authentic and just be relaxed and a bit more, like, and to be okay when we start, and to be okay when we, like, you presume it, like, oh, I'm not going to give time to that, but maybe between you making that decision and the actual conflict, maybe there's 3 weeks where you actually ruminating about it, but the important is at the end, the conclusion that you had taken is the best one, is the doing something different. I'm going to entertain myself with something else. I'm not going to use which is what I say at the beginning, the two avenues. Do I do something different and I distract me and whatever, and without disrespecting of the conflict, and then maybe I can address it from a much fresher point of view? Or do I keep digging, as you will say, onto these roots of something that is really darkened and thing, and then from there the operation is just not possible, and yeah, we can disintegrate people around the world. And we're seeing that what happened on the termination camps and the Nazis, and I think we need to agree up to some level that things have turned out a little bit, for someone who has that memory as a civilization, as a group of people. I think we all have to just make our own mathematical, but we have inundated television and pictures of things that kind of like highlight how horrible our brothers and sisters that were Jewish or gays or something went to extermination camps, and we have a collective memory of that, but there's not enough pictures out there and things that have been done by Spielberg that actually pointed out how is it these are the people which are a minority, which we are not like listening or seeing. Then the same happened with the rhetorics of, you know, colonialism and all the advantages we have by that, but we never like have enough vision from those who were colonized, for the Aboriginals who have been taking, you know, we don't have enough visual material to address the viewpoints. So while we keep very unpolarized into that, while we keep very westernized, where we keep like this really structure like going ahead with us, the less that war conflict will be resolved, and we are seeing it, you know. I mean, I don't know how long Ukraine has been in war with Russia, but
3 years.
you know, now we're choosing if he's gonna get into Europe or no, or whatever. Like, is that gonna make anything better? Like, when is it finished, you know? And actually, we also seen it like in the Revolución de los Claveles in Portugal, that it took, you know, a person to go in and the soldiers to say we're not fighting, and you know, and those things can burst. But we need to synchronize in the collective. We need to just really be willing to have awareness of how much discomfort we do live in, we will live in, and we will have to tolerate living with, until we know something better, until we know that language of love, which is, I think, that's where humanity is. You know, there's a lot of the agape, the Christian love, you know, like, I mean, you see in traditions, you see, you know, Plato and Socrates with the philia, like being friendly with someone, like enjoying a relationship, be doing that. With with Plato with Eros, with Aristotle with philia. Eros in terms of attraction, liking someone, like enjoying and just having that passion for someone. And then you have the agape that comes with the Judaism and Christianity, which is like the problems of someone's are bigger than, they are my problems. I embedded in me. I care for them. So you have all these movements that have moved the language of love to certain corners, and now we have then a tool, but we need one extra type of love that above the attraction or not attraction, the bipolarity of that, you know, the friendship or not friendship, and the caring about your problems and not caring. This is what the world needs to evolve as a you know, philosophical, which is the one of, maybe it's mindfulness, to resume it, is like, I want to be in contact with what is happening with me. I want to observe me outside the conflict. I want to observe me why I bring to the conflict. I want to observe why the conflict is there in first place. And I want to just simply like acknowledge that in a mindful way, and then just tell you it's okay that we don't have to disconnect because of that. Let's see if we, as moving in different directions, bring us together somehow. And then, because conflict cannot be resolved in conflict, pretty much.
Yes, that is right. I mean, the same thing is like hate doesn't resolve hate. So we gotta start somewhere and do something different to actually resolve the initial thing. So yes, I mean, everything you said is spot on, and I couldn't agree more. And it does start with ourselves being able to feel all the feels without reacting to them, and not just distracting ourselves away from them, but actually just give a moment. You know, I was in the school the other day, and they're like, oh, we were talking about how we're overwhelmed with all there is going on, from school to sports, family, this and that. And I was like, what do you recommend? And all I can say is what you already said, is acknowledge. You got to acknowledge that lots is going on. I have a lot of emotions. I have a lot of this. And then you take the next step. Either move into it, find a way to move with it, or take a pause and retreat and figuring it out step by step, right?
And then also realize which ones are your words, your personal words, and which
Yes.
ones you are people for the society.
Yep.
Yeah, because we speak very differently to someone that is black or white, to someone who is rich or poor, to someone who is a female or a male, to someone who have a different perspective of us, or a different predilection or sexual orientation, or however you want to, so at those rhetoric hours, of those our words, so we are already using them and bringing with us like the rubbish bag, and just to support the wavelength, and that's what I mean. Look for words that are obsolete, like victim, or look in the frame of let's let victims be victims, and then let's also make the perpetrator a victim of certain things that may happen, because I think they both, if it's this pain and if it's something happening, I don't think there's a natural, you know what I mean? Like we I mean, to be fair, like you see kids fighting very early in age, so, and biting and things like that. But so yes, there's a part of us that is violent. Okay, now let's live with it. Let's also not to try to say we never harm someone, that we never have an intention. There's not this meaning someone when you say, hey, like I didn't like this. Let's not apologize and then humiliate your apologies by telling the other person that is humiliating you because you are been apologizing. These are the things that we had to pick. Like if you were doing lentils, like people don't do lentils anymore, but like in the past you had to separate them from the stones. So let's separate from there, and let's try to find our own new words and new spaces and new conversations that see the stones in everywhere, because we are living with a lot of stones, and we are also living in one of the most incredible times in humanity, where even like the planet is giving us a break.
Yeah.
To some of us, of course, but maybe in 10 years it's not. Maybe in 10 years we have the sea coming to our houses, and the scarcity of, because we're seeing this is also happening. So right now we are in an amazing space, and we should be trying to do our parts, and that the only way it happens is by participating in your day-to-day, from the smaller connections, from the smaller reactions, from the small intention, and then we can expand from that. This is not anymore a wall of nations. It's not anymore a wall of like people deciding to go to war, and but I don't know, because obviously in Ukraine, like some people obviously took it, and there's a lot of refugees in London. And I actually did the hair the other day of she was a teenager, and she's here along in London. Her mother is with her brother in Ukraine because she's a doctor. So she's choosing to stay there to do her part. So let's realize that too, that there's many people that stay in conflict, repairing. So these are the complexity of all of that. It's not, our worry is not that simple when it happens.
And I think the only thing I want to add as we're getting towards the end is really like, be courageous and brave to make that leap of faith that you will bring something up for the greater good, even if it's just on this really minuscule scale. But if I do this with you, and then you'll do it with someone else, and then I keep doing it with other people, it will spread. That at least that immediate environment that we find ourselves in is spreading that same message of like, we want to connect even if we disagree.
And if not, you want to do it for other person, be courageous enough to recognize that you being not courageous enough.
Yes, that's right.
All right. Well, we shall leave it here. Peace.
Peace and love.
Well, vibes, you know, we like the missus used to say, what is it that you want? World peace. It would be very nice, and it should be at you to be. We should all work, but the work start within. So first, you know your fronts and your weapons.
Yes.
Because we all, I just say, know your weapons and know what is going to be your tactic. That you're going to use your weapons, or are you not? Because I think that was an important point that you say.
Yeah.
Silent is a weapon. Speaking wrong is a weapon. Not keeping communication away is a weapon. Not showing up with interest to acknowledge the person is a weapon. Showing up to just make the other person guilty is a weapon. So we all
Put
are
those
armed.
weapons down.
Yeah. We are all
Start
armed.
leading from here.
Yeah. Start leading from like, know that, like, yeah, go and put the arms down. Later.
Thank you so much.
Likewise.